Today we're going to try to get through John 10b. Now in John 10a, the main thought there was, or probably the best verse, the most memorable verse, is where Jesus comes out and says, I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. You know, a thief comes to steal, to kill, and destroy, but I'm here for the reason of you having life and having it abundantly. That's my mission. And this is something that, like, the whole chapter kind of led up to that particular thought. Now, the second half of John 10 takes a different turn. The second half of John 10:10 addresses the issue of his identity. We just finished John chapter 9. What did we talk about in John chapter 9? What was the highlight of John chapter 9?
Healing of the blind.
Exactly. Jesus did an incredible miracle. Now, when somebody does a miracle, or when a non-Christian first hears about some of Jesus' miracles, or even a new believer, because I've been there, and you look at the miracle and you go, is there any other way this could be interpreted? Is there any way this could not be supernatural? Because supernatural things are rare. It's very unusual for somebody to come across a miracle. That's why it's called a miracle. And so your brain automatically goes, well, is there a logical explanation for this? And so Jesus spent a lot of time doing things that were completely outside the bounds of logic. Healing the 5,000, feeding the 5,000, feeding the 4,000, making lame people walk, deaf people hear. Now a person born blind from birth. Okay, totally impossible miracle, and he's doing it. So he's specifically doing miracles that can't be explained away. Now there was one case back in Luke. There was he was going into a particular small town. I believe the name of the town was Nain. And as he was going into that town, there was a huge funeral procession coming out, and there was a widow who had lost her only son. And Jesus goes over to the casket and pulls the guy out of the casket. Okay. Now, that man, people believed, and that was a huge miracle, but he'd only been dead for one day. Okay? And so what do you think unbelievers or the Pharisees would say to that? He wasn't really dead. He wasn't really dead. And so that's one of the reasons why Jesus healed the blind man the way he did, because there is no way around that. Somebody born blind does not have the visual cortex for vision. Even if you were to heal their eyes, there is no way they will ever see. He pulled off something that has never been reported in history. Nobody ever heard of anybody doing it. It's impossible. It's utterly and completely impossible. Okay? So, there is that. And so, after this, now he's going to focus on his identity. Some people say that Jesus never claimed to be God. We see this in a number of groups. But yeah, Jesus was a good person. He was a good philosopher. He had some great ideas. He believed in nonviolence. But that stuff about him claiming to be God, no, that was added by the Catholic Church. That whole deity of Christ was something that was invented by the church. And what we're going to see today is, no, that was kind of invented by Jesus. Okay? So that's what we'll see today very clearly.
I am the good shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my own. As the Father knows me, even so I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they will hear my voice, and there will be one flock and one shepherd. Therefore my Father loves me, because I lay down my life, that I may take it again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again.
And one thing we mentioned last time, one point here, is that he's saying, I didn't have to come and die for people's sins. At any point, he could have said, you know what, let's do plan B. Let's make Lamb Man here and, do a plan B on this. Why not create, like we said last time, why not create a surrogate prophet who will die, who will live, we'll force him to live a perfect life, and then he'll sacrifice himself for the sins of the world. I'll load all the sins on this person, and we'll be done with it. He says, no. He's saying, no, I choose to die myself. I want to demonstrate the love that we have for man. And so I'm going to come down here and die for the sins of man. I'm not going to send any surrogate. It's going to be me. And because of this free will, this is why the Father loves me, because I freely lay down my life, and I'm free to take it up again. No one takes it from me. And he brings up, I lay it down of my own free will. And again, I can't stress again, love isn't real unless there is free will. People who say, there is no free will. Once we're created, our whole lives, based on our genetics and based on our environment, everything is laid out for us, and there is no free will. That, just to some degree, that's true. I mean, are you controlling your heart rate? No. What about your respiration? No. There are many things that are not left up to us. There are some things that are automatic responses and certain character traits that are in your genes. However, as a moral agent, you do have free will. Okay? And he's saying here, I'm a free agent throughout all of this. Everything I've done for you is of my free will, including my decision to come and die for y'all. Okay? That is of my free will. I choose to do it. And that's a reason that there is such affection between the Father and myself.
This command I have received from my Father.
Therefore, there was a division again among the Jews because of these sayings.
He has a demon and is mad. Why do you listen to him?
These are not the words of one who has a demon. Can a demon open the eyes of the blind?
Now, schizophrenia. Back then, did they have schizophrenia? Yeah. Yes, they did. What percentage of the population? About 1%. 1% has schizophrenia. Bipolar disorder. When people go through bipolar mania, they oftentimes become grossly psychotic and they look indistinguishable from schizophrenia. The only difference is when they go back to normal, they go back to normal. People with schizophrenia don't lapse back into normality, not without medication. Okay? So they were familiar. 3% of the population in any government, in any country, at any time, 3% of the population has serious mental illness involving a break in reality testing. So delusions, hallucinations, and disorganized thinking. So they had words for that going all the way back. This was something that was known. There's also a situation where you can become severely depressed with psychotic features. And that happens as well. When people fall into a deep depression, they can become psychotic, and they can also hear voices and have delusions. So these people were familiar with that. And if you've ever seen anybody who was manic or overtly psychotic and listened to them talk, you're thinking to yourself, you're not making sense. Okay, you're saying things that are obviously outrageous. Okay, you're saying things that aren't true, and in some cases, your sentences don't even make sense. Okay? Now, they've heard that, and so that's what they're debating here. What are you talking about? What in the world are you talking about? You're saying these things like you're talking about, I freely lay down my life and I'm free to take it up again. I mean, this is when you hear crazy people who are psychotic, they sometimes talk about suicide and so forth. And so they're thinking, is this some kind of weird suicidal thinking? Is he crazy? But then other people in the group are going, wait a minute. If he's crazy, how did he heal that blind guy? Okay? Yes, it does sound confusing. And I don't know what he's talking about. But he just healed this fella that was born blind. That's impossible. So how did he exert that kind of influence? Have you ever saw a person with schizophrenia or bipolar heal somebody, do an overt miracle? Think about that. So we have two groups. We have two groups here. And this is the Weiss version. A division, again, arose among the Jews because of these words. And many of them were saying, a demon he has and is raving mad. So they didn't just, they use both here because sometimes they're used interchangeably. When they accuse people of having a demon, what they meant was you have a mental illness involving hallucinations and delusions. That's what they usually mean by that. Okay, sometimes they don't actually think you have a demon. They would use that interchangeably. But in this particular case, they use both. So he has a demon and he's mad. Okay, he has both. Okay, so yeah, we're dealing with somebody with mental illness and a demon. And then the other said, no, it doesn't sound like he has a demon. Come on. A demon's not able to open the eyes of blind people, is he? Demons don't go around doing good things. All right, they don't go around doing good things.
Now it was the feast of dedication in Jerusalem, and it was winter. And Jesus walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. Then the Jews surrounded him.
How long do you keep us in doubt? If you are the Christ, tell us plainly.
All right, so verse 22, they were celebrating Hanukkah just then in Jerusalem. So it's a big celebration. We have Jews from all over Israel that have come to Jerusalem. It was winter. Jesus was strolling in the temple across Solomon's porch. Now you got to think about this. In all of Jerusalem, what city is Jesus in? I mean, in all of Israel, I just said the answer. In all of Israel, Jesus is in Jerusalem. Now, for the United States, that would be Washington, D.C. Okay, so he's in the capital. He's in the religious capital. He's in the administrative capital of the country. So at a time when Jews from all over the country are in town to celebrate Hanukkah, okay? So big deal here, lots of people, all right? And as he was strolling across Solomon's porch, the Jews circling him said, how long are you going to keep us guessing? If you're the Messiah, tell us straight out, all right? Be clear. If you're the Messiah, tell us plainly. Now, do they desperately want to know? Do they want to follow him? Are they going to bow at his feet if he tells them? Why are they asking him this question?
So they could get him for heresy.
Exactly. Think about the trial. Think about his trial later on. They brought in all these witnesses, and they wanted a witness to say he claimed to be the Messiah, okay, point blank. And they couldn't get people to agree on exactly what he had said. And so they want a public proclamation, something to use against him that is like plain out and flat. Now he does give it to them. I don't know how they couldn't find people to do this, but you know, as we're going to see here, he kind of does that. But they want to know plain out flat. But he you know, but the thing is, you got to keep in mind, because when you read the book of John, the associations aren't always clear, and sometimes you have to infer the associations by context. If you don't do that, then Jesus says stuff that comes right out of the air, and you don't have a clue where it comes from. And I tell you, the first few times I read John, I'm going, I'm going to have to save that one for later, because I don't know what you were trying to say here. This doesn't make sense. They asked you a question that asked this, and you said that, and I don't see the connection at all. And so always try to see the connection, okay? Try to see the connection. You might not be right, but if you at least try, then you can, oftentimes you'll come up with a plausible idea. So now we're getting into this territory. I'm just warning you right now, because Jesus says some stuff, and you're going, they asked you this, and you said this, and I don't see the association. So what I'm going to ask is that when they said, this is what he's going to be responding to. How long are you going to keep us guessing? If you're the Messiah, tell us straight out. We want to, you know, what they're trying to do is they want to engage him in an argument that will ultimately lead to him being discredited. All right? And why do they want to discredit him? Why do they want to discredit him? Why?
Because they don't want to believe he's the Messiah.
They don't want to believe he's the Messiah. Okay. They don't want to believe. That is true. That is true. Anything?
Their idea of Messiah was different than what he read.
Their idea of Messiah was very different. It's very different. What about anything else? Their power is threatened, okay? Their power base was the people having respect in them. You are the religious authorities. You guys represent God. You guys, you know, you get it from on high and feed us lowly people. And so also we got the Roman thing going, you know. I mean, we are here at the behest of Rome even, and so Rome allows us to control the country as long as we pay them taxes. We get our way. And if the people start following you, you're going to erode our base. And so what they're saying, what they want is, we need to discredit you so the people will stop following you. We need to pull people away from you. You have too many followers. Too many people in this city are looking at healing this blind guy. They've heard about it. They've talked to people about it. They've got it confirmed that it really happened. And more people are coming over to his side. The sense is there are more people who are going, hey, he's not crazy, than he's crazy. And they're getting scared about this. And so they need to discredit him publicly to take followers away from Jesus. Does anybody disagree with that? Does that make sense to you? Okay? Because if you understand that, then Jesus' response makes sense. Okay, but you got to follow that all the way through. They're trying to discredit him because they want to pull followers away from Jesus. Too many people are coming over to his side, and they don't like that. All right, next verse. So they're trying to get him into a public debate so they can discredit him before the masses.
I told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. But you do not believe, because you are not of my sheep, as I said to you. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. Neither shall anyone snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand.
I told you already. I mean, you want me to be clear, are you the Messiah or not? And he's going, man, I told you guys several times. I've already said that to you. And I guess they want a more public proclamation. But so he's a little bit, miffed to say, I told you already, you didn't believe. Let me tell you why you don't believe. Because you're not my sheep. Okay? And whatever I say, if you're not interested in truth, you're not going to hear it. My sheep, they hear my voice and they know me. And so now he's going to be making a case. And the case is this. No matter what you do, if you think that you are going to pull people away from me, you are delusional. Okay? Sometimes when I have a case, I started seeing kids again recently, but children, especially these teenagers, sometimes can be really, really difficult. I mean, they make adults look like, cupcakes. I mean, yeah, gosh. And the thing is that they come in with their attitude is, I know everything. There's nothing you can say. I know everything. I've got, and it's like, and they feel so confident that they have the world figured out. And there's a part of you that wants to go, you don't know, you're an embryo. You know nothing. You know nothing about how the world works. You have the IQ of 5. I mean, compared to, when you grow up, your IQ goes up until you're 65. You're considering yourself smarter than your parents, smarter than your therapist, smarter than your doctor, and you know nothing. And you think that your profanity is going to somehow make me feel bad? You think you're going to affect my self-esteem? He says, do you know who you're, it's like, you have no chance. You have no power. You have no power, and you don't know it. And this arrogance of yours is almost a joke. Okay? It really is. It's pathetic. It's what it is. Your arrogance is pathetic, and the only person you're hurting is yourself. Okay? That's what it generates when you get challenged by one of these kids. That's the feeling that is generated in adults. It's like, man. And some adults make the mistake of getting down on their level and using the same language back and says, no, you never do that. You never, ever, ever get down on their level. That will only go badly. Now, the point is that Jesus is kind of responding to their attempts to pull his followers away. And he's saying, what he's saying here is that you don't know who you're dealing with here. You don't have a chance. You guys are peons. If you think your little childish rant, your little outrageously transparent attempt to discredit me, if you think it's going to work and pull people away from me, let me explain to you how difficult that's going to be for you. And so then he goes into this next one. Jesus answered them, I told you, and you do not believe. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me. But you do not believe because you're not of my sheep. As I said to you, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them eternal life, and they shall never perish. Neither shall anyone snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. So he lays down this thing and says, if you're trying to rip followers away from me, that will never, ever happen. People the Father has given me. People, my followers, they're in my hand. They're in the Father's hand. In case you're confused, I and the Father are one. All right? So you wanted to know if I'm the Messiah? How about this little cookie? Okay? I and the Father are one. Ego ke hopater hen esmen. That's what he said in Greek. Okay? Well, actually he said it in Aramaic. It was translated to Greek. Okay? But basically that's what he said. I and the Father are one. Okay? You know, they're in my hand. They're in the Father's hand, and we ain't never letting go. So no matter what your little plan is, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Oh, this is the Weiss version of that same passage. So this is it's kind of good to read through that. Answering them, Jesus, I told you, and you are not believing. The works which I am constantly doing in the name of my Father, these are bearing testimony concerning me. But as for you, you are not believing because you are not the sheep which are mine. The sheep which are mine are in the habit of listening to my voice. Okay, so that tells you that he's using a present tense verb. Anytime a present tense verb is used, that means it's something that happens and it's continuing to happen. So he says that my sheep are in the habit of listening to my voice. All right? And I know them by experience, and they take the same road that I take with me, and I give to them life eternal, and they shall positively not perish. Never, never, never. And no one will snatch them by force out of my hand. My Father who gave them to me as a permanent gift is greater than all. And so what I like about Weiss here is he's giving you the full flavor of the Greek text. So it's not, people wonder, can somebody cause you to fall away? Now, in terms of somebody causing a true believer to fall away, the answer is here. The answer is obviously no. My Father gave me as a permanent gift. Now, from our perspective, I can't tell who is sincere and who isn't. And so again, from God's perspective, it's a permanent placement. He knows your whole life, though, from backwards to forwards. Okay? So, but if somebody is truly His, there is no way that somebody is going to snatch them out of there. No one is able to snatch them by force out of the hand of my Father. I and the Father are one in essence. All right, so you get this picture here. When you are Christ, He's got you. In the Father's hand, in Jesus' hand, not letting go, and there is no way to forcibly pull somebody out of that position. Okay? So in answer to their statement, in answer to their challenge of trying to discredit Him and get followers to stop following Him, his point is, the people that are really mine, there is nothing you can do that's going to displace them. Now, he could have said, hello, my name is Nico Montoya. You are trying to discredit me, prepare to die. As God, he could have done that. As God, he could have done that. He could have addressed that. He didn't. Instead, he comes back at him with words. And then he said, I and my Father are one. And when he said that, that was a big deal. Because when he came out with, I and my Father are one, whoa. They got that. They says, wow, this is the ammunition they were looking for right here.
I and my Father are one.
Then the Jews took up stones again to stone him.
Many good works I have shown you from my Father. For which of those works do you stone me?
For a good work we do not stone you, but for blasphemy. And because you, being a man, make yourself God.
It was very obvious. They knew exactly what he was saying. Okay? It's like, dude, you just said, I and my Father are one. You said your followers were in your hand, and they were in the Father's hand, and you and your Father were one. You very clearly made yourself equal with God, and they got it. Okay, so no longer are they calling him crazy. They're not calling him crazy anymore. Now they're saying, you are a blasphemer. You are calling yourself God. Okay, time to stone you. And again, the Jews picked up stones and brought him in order that they might stone him. Jesus answered them, many works I showed you as evidence, beautiful, noble works from my Father. So I like that it's not just works. There is a character quality to the works. The things that I did, now, when Jesus calls himself the light of the world, he says that for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that light illuminates your path. Now, when it comes to moral decisions, light shows you what is good and what is evil. What is something that you should gravitate towards, that is going to be nurturing, that is going to be nutritive, it's going to support you? And what are those things which are evil? Those things what will lead you away from God, those things that will lead you into destruction and ruin, those things that lead to nothing, to complete loss or harm to others or harm to self. Okay, that's what light does. It shows you where to walk safely and where to go to get the good stuff. Okay? Now, inside of us, God created us so that we recognize that which is noble and good. Now, we can corrupt that with our free will. If we keep making bad choices and justifying those bad choices by defense mechanisms, then we lose our way, because we keep calling bad good and good bad. And you keep doing that, and pretty soon you don't know which way is up. And we have that problem right now in our society. I mean, big time. I mean, we've got a tremendous reversal going on, where that which is bad is called good and that which is good is called bad. I mean, it's getting worse and worse all the time. There's tons and tons of examples of that right now. Okay? And he's saying, hey, the stuff that I'm doing, if there is any good in you, you recognize that it's good. Feeding 9,000 people, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a good thing. Healing deaf people, is that good or bad? Healing blind people, good or bad? Okay? What am I doing that's bad? What exactly? That's what he's saying. I've shown you a lot of supernatural things and a lot of good things. What have I done? What thing? He's challenging them. He's not, rather than cowering in fear, don't hit me with the stone, please. I just washed my face. No, he's not freaking out. He stands right up and challenges them. What are you stoning me for? Give me a reason. Okay? And they answered him, for a noble work we are not proposing to stone you, but for blasphemy, because you, being a human being, are deifying yourself. You are putting yourself on the same level as God. And so in English it sounds like that. Well, guess what? In Hebrew it sounded like that too. Okay, they got it. It came right out, and that was a huge thing. Jesus said, I'm only quoting your inspired scripture where God said, I tell you, you are gods. If God called your ancestors gods and the scripture doesn't lie, why do you yell blasphemer? Blasphemer at the unique one the Father consecrated and sent to the world, just because I said, I am the Son of God. Now, back when I was in college and I read that second one, I'm going, oh, it sounds like he's backtracking. Sounds like you said I am the Father are one, and now you say this. You say I was quoting your scriptures where God said, I tell you, you are gods. Why did God say that? And why is he quoting that scripture? Any ideas? Well, it was, bottom line is that, with regard to moral agency, there is a sense in which humans are gods, in the sense that like God, we have a free will. Okay, and we have agency in our lives. Free agency in our lives morally. So on that degree it's true. Now it's not true in the sense of masters of the universe. It's not true in the sense that we are creators. Now,
isn't it true also that if you believe in God, you have God in you?
That is true. So on some level, that's true. And so again, and that's a good point. On some level, there is truth to that. But on the divine level, did he call them Yahweh? No. Okay, and so there's that. Now what Jesus is pointing out to is semantic thing. He says, okay, if semantically you people can be called gods, semantically. And in the last says, the unique one the Father consecrated and sent into the world. And so this is the Weiss version. He says, concerning him who the Father consecrated and sent on a mission into the world. He says, look, I have more right to that title than anybody, because I am sanctioned, I'm separated out and sent on a mission by the Father. And so me calling myself, I have more right to it than anybody. And so, yeah, I am. Yes, so on the one hand, yeah, you guys can be called gods in a sense, but I have more right to that. I have more right to that than anybody, because I was consecrated by the Father. You want evidence? Look. What have I done, for crying out loud? Okay? So what he's saying is that I have a right to that title. I have demonstrated that I have a right to that title. And he reinforces this as he goes on.
Is it not written in your law? I said, you are gods. If he called them gods to whom the word of God came, and the scripture cannot be broken, do you say of him whom the Father sanctified and sent into the world, you are blaspheming, because I said I am the Son of God? If I do not do the works of my Father, do not believe me. But if I do, though you do not believe me, believe the works, that you may know and believe that the Father is in me, and I in him.
It says, assuming that I am not doing the works of my Father, stop believing me. So what's he saying? If I'm not doing things only God can do, then don't believe me. All right? Don't pay attention to what I'm saying. Look at what I'm doing. What is wrong with you people? Okay? Look at what I'm doing. If you don't believe, if you think that there's a natural explanation for everything I've done, feel free not to believe. But if you can't come up with an explanation other than me being from God, then shut up. Okay? But since I am doing the works, even if you're not believing me, the works be believing, in order that you may come to know by experience and continue knowing that in me the Father is, and I in the Father. So if you're having trouble with I am the Father, and the Father's in me, and I and the Father are one, go back and review what you know. Go back and review what you know. I just healed that blind guy over there who was born blind. The person with the withered hand, the lame person, the deaf person, the kid that was in the funeral procession. Let's go through and list all the miracles. The 4,000 that I fed, the 5,000 that I fed, all the people that came to me, I healed every one of them. Oh, let's not forget that. I've had crowds come to me, and I've healed every single person that came into the crowd and asked me and touched me. Okay? So which of these, leprosy, all right, yeah, and so at this time in his ministry, he has got a bookload of miracles that everybody has heard about, okay? It's impossible not to have heard of him and live in Jerusalem at this time. He's the most famous person in all of Jerusalem, okay? So, based on what you've heard, he's appealing to common sense. He really is. He is just doubling down and appealing to common sense. Yeah, I said I and the Father are one. What do you think is going on here? If you consider all that I've done, what else do you think this could be?
Therefore they sought again to seize him, but he escaped out of their hand. And he went away again beyond the Jordan to the place where John was baptizing at first, and there he stayed.
They tried yet again to arrest him, but he slipped through their fingers. This is really this is kind of disturbing here, that verse 39. In the Weiss translation, where it says they tried yet again to arrest him, what that means is that they kept on trying. So they tried to stone him, and when he said, listen to the works, apparently that was enough to slow them down, where they paused, okay, because they were ready to stone. They had the stoning brigade ready to go, but there's so many people going, yeah, you know what, yeah, and they're looking around going, you start stoning him now, we could be in for some trouble. And so what they did was they tried to send the Secret Service in to try to round him up quietly to arrest him. And they tried several times. That's why that word, they tried yet again. It was a continual thing. And so they would go somewhere, and here the police would come. They'd go somewhere, and here they would come. And so they're actually trying to outwalk the authorities and trying to get around this. So they tried unsuccessfully to arrest him. Now, we don't know why they failed. Was it because the crowd kept protecting him? Okay, that could have been it. Was it because they were good at finding hiding places? Because they were walking really fast? We don't know. We're not given that information. But there were repeated efforts to pull him away from the crowds, to arrest him, and they failed. Okay? Now, the disciples who are going along with this are not minus. What do you think they are thinking? He almost got stoned, all right? And the police are after them. How are the disciples feeling about this, do you think? What do you think? What's going through their minds?
Fear.
Yeah, I would think that's pretty logical. Yeah, there are some of them that are probably a little bit nervous about this. It's not like they're in a small town. It's not like they're in a place where the majority of the population is going, yay, Jesus. They're now in a situation where, yes, you have a lot of people going, yay, Jesus, but you also have the federal government that are really mad at you. They want to stone you. They're trying to arrest you. They want to put you to death. Okay, so this is a little bit more serious than when he was in those small towns in other areas of Israel. This is Jerusalem. Now, they've tried to stone him there before. This isn't the first time. But this is kind of the last straw, because here, this one, what's different about this one is he came out, said in public, I and the Father are one. Okay, and he gave illustrations, made it clear what he was talking about. I have a right to the title of Son of God. Based on my works, I have every right to the title of Son of God in your face. Okay, in your face. And so they're really mad. And now the disciples are going, you know what? They're going to use that against you, dude. I'm telling you. I mean, this time, that blasphemy charge, they're nervous about that. They're nervous. And so what do they do next? All right, a lot of people followed him over. They were saying John did no miracles, but everything he did, everything he said about this man has come true. Many believed in him then and there. So Jesus got a huge following after that. And so that's probably the explanation as to why he wasn't arrested. Okay? Too many people. There's going to be a mob. You arrest him. And in fact, we find that later in John 2, is that they want to get him in private. And that's clearly, that's the thing, is they couldn't arrest him because there's too many people. You'll start a mob. You start a mob, you're going to get Rome's attention, and we're really in trouble if that happens. Okay? So as long as he has all this favorable publicity, they can't touch him. Yeah?
Why would they decide to believe him right then and there? He didn't do any miracles.
The logic of what he just said. I mean, when he spoke to the crowd, he says, look, because he wasn't just talking to the Pharisees, because he already said, you guys aren't my sheep, to the Pharisees. But then he probably turned to the crowd and said, you know, if you don't believe because of my words, look at the works I've done. Think about that. And everybody in town had heard about those works. I mean, there is no way that was not common knowledge at that time, given the number of miracles that he did. I mean, this was not his first trip to Jerusalem. Every time he went to Jerusalem, he did a boatload of miracles. Okay? And then it was Hanukkah. It was Hanukkah. And so you have people from all those other cities in Israel coming into town, and they're telling their stories about what Jesus did when he came to their town. And so we've got a whole boatload, a whole bookload of stories. By the time we get to John chapter 10 here, there is a lot about Jesus that is known. Most of the material in Matthew, Mark, and Luke has already taken place by this time. Okay, so that is a huge stack of miracles that's already happened, and lots of first-hand witnesses and 10 times as many second-hand witnesses. So this is a big deal, and he's very popular here. So many believed in him then and there. This is it. This is the thing. When Jesus left, how far did he go away? When he's got this huge crowd from Jerusalem, and they keep following him, so they can't arrest him where he's going. How far did he go? He went from Jerusalem to, it's called Bethany by the Jordan, okay, or Bethany under the Jordan. That was the name of the city. There were two Bethanys. There was one Bethany that was 2 miles east of Jerusalem, and there was another Bethany that was 20 miles east, or 22 miles east of Jerusalem. That's the one he went to. So Jesus and his disciples and this crowd walked 22 miles with him. They walked 22 miles with him. So he's pretty far. So now the danger is, the disciples are feeling better, more comfortable. The police aren't after him anymore. Okay, and they've got this huge crowd with them, and so they're all gone back over. This is where Jesus was baptized, in the southern tip of the Jordan River, 22 miles away, and they're in peace and safety now. But that's the story. Okay, and that's important to keep that in mind, because we're going to pick up there in John chapter 11. All right, but this is when it comes to the question of the deity of Christ. This is a very, very powerful chapter. It really is. It's hard to get away with saying, well, Jesus did not claim to be God. It's like, really? You know, the idea of Jesus being God, the liberal theologians said for years that came about over hundreds of years. The Catholic Church evolved that. They made that up to strengthen their religion. So they turned Jesus from a philosopher and a prophet into a deity. And it evolved over time. And throughout the latter part of the 19th century and first part of the 20th century, that position held among liberal theologians, that this belief was added like 300-400 years later. At the time, the earliest copies of the New Testament manuscripts were 400 and 500 years after the fact. Well, archaeology's dug up quite a few other manuscripts now. And the earliest manuscript copies of the book of John that we have, the earliest one is the John Rylands manuscript in the Cambridge University Library, and it dates to about 120 AD. Okay, so, and it's basically the same. If you look at that fragment with that, the language is exactly the same. So that tells us that, and that's a copy, that's not an original. So that tells you that the original predates the 120 AD. So John didn't die till around 100 AD. Okay? So this is a copy that was within 20 years of the death of the author. So the question is, there's no way the church could have invented the book of John. That's the point. All right? Because the author was still alive when the copies were, when this, clearly, you can't develop a legend in such a short period of time. All right. So essentially, the idea of Jesus being deity, either the apostles made it up, or Jesus made it up. Okay. That's kind of what we're left with. And if the apostles made it up, why did they die for it? Why was John willing to be boiled in oil if he made it up? Okay. Why was Peter willing to be crucified upside down? Why was Philip willing to be flayed alive? Okay. Why was Thomas willing to be speared to death? Okay. Why was Paul willing to be beheaded if they made these stories up? See, this is the strength of Christianity that nobody else has. Okay. Any questions?